is appalled at the way that Tim Walz responded. Fry, too, the mayor of Minneapolis, and the mayor of St. Paul, he's not much better. But Tim Walz in particular, and, as with the original incident that happened a couple weeks ago, it is always a sad tragedy when someone loses their life. There's no doubt about it. However, why would you take a gun with extra magazines to an anti-ICE event and confront federal officers? Why would you do that? I mean, that's crazy town. And I watched Tim Walz in his press conference today, and he had with him the general of his National Guard. And I saw just a few minutes ago that the Minnesota National Guard are moving into Minneapolis. And I saw Tim Walz with his National Guard general, and it was frightening to me. You know, we've been talking the last few weeks that Minnesota has been in an open state of rebellion against the federal government. There's an insurrection going on there. You know, after this happened, after everything happened today, it's the second death because Tim Walz and the Democrats have sent these protesters out there. And even after this incident, like with the Renee Good incident, Tim Walz goes out there and justifies the actions of the protesters that led to these tragedies, which is instigating, hopefully not, but instigating possible future tragedies. And then, you know, Tim Walz has been out there blaming the federal government for all of these things. And when he does that, not only is he justifying the actions of these protesters and everything they've done, he's also encouraging more. This is not how you behave. Tim Walz is leading an insurrection against the federal government, against the President of the United States. That's it. I mean, it's been going on for weeks, but we had another tragedy today, and another American lost their life because of Tim Walz and Jacob Frey. Y'all agree with that? I would imagine most of you do. You know, when something like this happens, okay? Now, I'll say, I don't want you to misunderstand what I'm saying here, because this is an important point to make, and I want to play some audio for you, but there's one in particular I want to play for you in the beginning. Everything that's going on in Minneapolis is because Tim Walz and the Democrats are in a complete panic over the fraud operation that everyone learned about from the great reporting of Nick Shirley. And this all began to try to get the federal agents out of Minnesota so that they wouldn't find evidence and start prosecuting the fraud. We all know this. And it really shows you how evil Tim Walz is. That now, because of his actions, 2 Americans are dead who have been brainwashed into thinking that there's some type of freedom rider, civil rights activist from the 60s. And, you know, if Tim Walz were a decent man, and he's not, if he was a decent governor, and he's not, if he was just a decent human being, and he's not, what he would come out and say is this to all the protesters: go home. He would go out there and tell them, hey, we don't agree with what they're doing. This is an election year, okay? This is an election year, okay? The party in power, we don't agree with what they're doing, but we are going to defeat them at the ballot box. We're going to vote in November, and we're going to beat them in the ballot box. And when our people are in control, we'll put a stop to this in a responsible way. This has gotten dangerous. 2 people have lost their lives. Go home. That's what he would tell them. I want to play you President Trump. This is January 6th. Everything that happened, happened. Of course, President Trump didn't have anything to do with that. You know this. I don't want to sit around and argue January 6th. We know what happened on January 6th. Nancy Pelosi really knows what happened on January 6th. But the President of the United States, Donald Trump, on January 6th, he came out of the White House and addressed specifically the people that were in and around the Capitol building. And this is what President Trump said. You'll remember this maybe. You don't see this too much because it doesn't fit the narrative, so they never show you this clip. But I'm going to show it to you. This is the President, January 6th. Let me turn up the volume here. See, that's how a responsible leader reacts, right? Go home, law and order, go home in peace. That was President Trump on January 6th. You saw what Tim Walz and Frey were doing today. If you're on hold, hang in there. We'll get to some calls in a bit. Here's Tim Walz just the other day. This is, of course, after Renee Good, after that incident happened, and before the one today, obviously. Look at him. He has this, the tiniest, looks like a toy child's megaphone here. But listen, this is Tim Walz. See, now, John Lewis. He's using John Lewis. You may know he was in Congress. He's passed away. He was in the Congressional Black Caucus. As in his older years, he got crazy and very left-wing and lunatic. But when he was 16 years old, he joined Martin Luther King. He was mentored by Martin Luther King, John Lewis. So right here, you have Tim Walz comparing the violent anti-ICE protesters to Martin Luther King's freedom riders and civil rights activists by name, by invoking the name of John Lewis. Good trouble, yeah, with a 9mm and extra magazines, or running federal agents over with automobiles. That's not nonviolent. That's not what John Lewis was doing when he was with Martin Luther King. He's instigating all of this. All of it. And if he were a decent person, he would do what Trump did on January 6th. Go home in peace. We have to have law and order. Go home in peace. But that's not what Tim Walz is doing. Tim Walz is telling people to double down. You know, I followed so many events over my career doing this, different events. I've never seen a governor act like this before, ever, ever. You know, the way Tim Walz behaved today, the way he's been behaving the last couple of weeks, but today, the way he was behaving today after the incident, never seen a governor act that way. You know, there have always been, when there's been violent events, you know, South Central, you know, those George Floyd riots, you know, all these things. There's always been activist, sometimes maybe a House member, but mostly activist, you know, Al Sharpton types, who will come out and defend the violent actions. But I've never seen a governor do it, not even a Democrat. And I don't say this lightly. I know a lot of people use this term a lot, very loosely with everything. I don't even like saying it. But the way that Tim Walz was behaving today after this event was the way that the Democrats were talking in 1860 when Abraham Lincoln was elected. He was talking like a Civil War governor, a Democrat, well, I guess pre-Civil War. This kind of rhetoric is what caused the Civil War, which was the Democrat insurrection against the federal government. Right? I mean, that's how it happened, by irresponsible Democrats talking like Tim Walz was today. And I found it not just irresponsible and disgusting, but scary. And he was calling out other cities, Philadelphia, Miami, because he thinks Miami went blue, which it didn't. I don't want to get sidetracked on that, but Miami did not go Democrat, guys, contrary to what they're telling you, all the time in the news. He was doing these shout-outs, Miami, Philadelphia. There were a couple of others. And what he was doing when he was doing these shout-outs to these other cities, he's trying to form a new Confederate States of America. He's trying to have this insurrection rebellion in Minnesota spread to other cities and states. That's what he was doing that today. After the shooting, he was doing those shout-outs. It's pretty obvious what he's trying to do, isn't it? Yeah. So I know President Trump has been watching everything today. I know that he watched the press conference that Tim Walz had, and you know he was ticked off. And you know President Trump is planning some type of response. I don't know what it is. You know, it takes time to mobilize the military. I don't know if he wants to federalize the Minnesota National Guard. I saw their general talking today. I don't know if you could trust the Minnesota National Guard. You know, they did talk a couple days ago that there were some Arctic troops from Alaska that they were preparing and putting on standby to move into Minneapolis if they were needed. You know, is that the right thing to do now, or would it escalate the situation? I mean, these are the things that the president's weighing right now, and President Trump will do the right thing. Whatever he does will be the right thing. He has very smart people around him, and they're going over all the options and discussing what would be the most productive. So, you know, you always got to trust in Trump. He knows what he's doing. Believe me, he was ticked off at Tim Walz today. Believe me. If you're on hold, hang in there. Wanted to share this. This was from Fox just a little while ago. This is one of the Fox News contributors today. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, what are you supposed to do? The guy had a gun. He had a gun and extra magazines. And by the way, it was reported he had no ID, which is required to carry a gun, And apparently in Minnesota, you need a permit, and he didn't have a permit either. Guy was violating multiple federal laws, and he was armed. It's a tragedy. I don't want to see any American lose their life. And I know you don't either. But this is all happening because of the irresponsibility of Tim Walz, who's trying to get the feds out of Minnesota so that people don't start getting arrested on the $19 billion Leering Center fraud uncovered by Nick Shirley. All right, I'm going to go to the phones, and there's 2 openings on the board. If you'd like to call in, the number is pinned in the live chat, 888-465-2631, 888-465-2631. I want to tell you a couple things before I take the calls. 1, we're going to stick to the topic. And 2, be responsible. You say stupid things and irresponsible things, you're gone, okay? You know, this is a time to be smart and responsible. You got me? Okay, you've been warned. There'll be no further warnings. Let's go. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Brian. It's Job for 9 out of California.
Yep.
Another tragedy that could have been averted due to sanctuary city status has occurred. I don't understand why this is. I honestly hope that President Trump actually ends up taking all of those great people that are working for him and finding out how they can end up labeling sanctuary city status as being unconstitutional, because that is at the heart of what is going on. Mm-hmm. In addition, I don't understand why a responsible gun owner would not have, which is his responsibility to have, and be intentionally putting himself in a situation where he could be viewed as a threat. Mm-hmm. Because when you start getting into an altercation, especially with other individuals who have guns, and they visually see that someone else has a gun, they're going to look at you as a direct threat. There's no way for them to be able to determine if you have any more firearms.
Listen, ICE are police officers, federal police. Who goes to a protest against federal agents or cops and brings a 9mm gun with extra magazines? Come on, you're bringing it for a reason. And quite frankly, this guy, who knows, he could have been a possible mass shooting event. Why do you have so much ammo?
Why do you have so much ammo? Why don't you have identification? Why are you getting involved in an altercation? You have a weapon on you. You should be standing as far away with your hands up.
Here in Florida, we have open carry, okay?
Yeah.
And without a permit, by the way. And I'm a gun owner. When I take my gun, the only time I bring extra ammunition is if I'm going to the gun range. When I take my weapon with me, I'll take it to work, to the radio station where I go. So I don't bring extra ammo. Why would you bring extra ammo with your carry weapon? Why would you? You wouldn't. That's not something you would. You wouldn't do that unless you thought you were going to need all that extra ammo.
These people have actually completely lost their minds. I was telling someone else, why in the world would you get involved in an altercation of any kind with individuals who are law enforcement that have weapons? And then on top of that, you have a weapon, which means what? You are considered to be a threat. An overwhelming force to subdue the threat is going to be utilized. That is a standard, no matter where you are.
That's correct.
If the end result ends up becoming that someone ends up losing their life, the threat has been neutralized. That is the way law enforcement works.
When you talk about this guy he had 2 extra magazines, 2 extra clips. I didn't hear how many rounds those clips hold. They could hold 10. They could hold more. I don't know, but he had at least 30 rounds of ammunition at a minimum. At a minimum, he had at least 30 rounds of ammunition. Why would a guy bring 30 rounds of ammo, minimum? He could have had more. It depends on how many rounds the magazines have. Like I've got a Glock 48, which is it's a good Glock. It's thin. It's really kind of designed for concealed carry, and it holds it holds 10 rounds plus one in the chamber. So it can hold 11 rounds. Each magazine holds 10. So if I had my gun loaded and brought 2 magazines, I'd have 31 rounds. Why would you have so many rounds at a political protest where there's federal agents? Why would somebody do that?
This does, first of all, this doesn't make any sense. This individual obviously did not have the mental capacity, in my opinion, to have a firearm. Because if you're going to end up presenting yourself, if you end up having because it was concealed, right, until it ended up either falling out or being taken by law enforcement, it was concealed. If you are putting yourself in a direct situation where you're going to have an altercation with federal law enforcement, you are a threat.
Correct.
And you shouldn't be having a weapon.
Yeah,
so when are the Dems going to? When are the Dems going to? The talking point that I actually.
I'll tell you another thing. You probably have already seen this. The gun control Democrats are all of a sudden big proponents of the Second Amendment. Well, Second Amendment. You don't have the Second Amendment right to carry a gun around without ID.
Yes.
And permits are required in Minnesota. You got to have even in Florida, we have open carry without a permit. I still have to have state issued photo ID.
You have to have an ID. You have to have an ID, and if you interact with a law enforcement agency, you have to immediately inform them that you have a weapon on you.
Correct.
You have to. That is part of your obligation and responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is I just woke up to hear all this stuff go on. I have yet to actually hear them about gun control. Isn't that amazing?
Exactly.
The one thing that they always end up claiming
Mm-hmm.
is we need to get guns off the street. This is going to be the one situation where you don't hear any of
That's
that.
right.
And
all right, well, listen, I've got a lot of people on hold, so I'm going to take some of the calls, but thanks for the call. If you'd like to call in, the number is pinned in the live chat. It's toll free no matter where you're watching. 888-465-2631. 888-465-2631. So, so the guy had a loaded 9mm, and he had 2 magazines with him. So as I said, he had a minimum of 30 rounds, minimum. I don't know anyone here in Florida. All the guys carry pretty much. I don't know anyone that brings an extra magazine. The only people that carry extra magazines are cops, right? Because you're not going to get into a shootout if you're just a regular guy. I bring extra ammo when I go to the gun range because I'm going to use it. You don't carry it around. All right, let's go back to the phones. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Oh, hold on one moment here. Answer all these lines. All right, yep. Oh. All right, go ahead. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Brian, Vanessa, and Pensacola.
Hey, what's up, Pensacola?
Hey, well, I'm wondering why Tim Walz is so brave to keep speaking out against the federal government, and why isn't he hiding in a corner? I don't think they're afraid of Pam Bondi.
No, Pam Bondi had a real embarrassing moment today. She said that she sent a strongly worded letter to Tim Walz. I mean, I couldn't believe she said that. I mean, it was crazy what she said on TV earlier, a couple hours ago. Tim Walz, I believe, it's 2 things. One, he's trying to stop the feds from investigating the Somali fraud that the Democrats have going on. And he's also, at the same time, I think in his mind, he's running for president. He thinks he's going to be the Democrat nominee.
Oh, my God.
Could you imagine?
Wow. Oh, no, not at all. I mean, I feel like it'll be Pritzker and he's horrible, or Newsom and he's worse. And but I mean, Walz. Are you kidding? He's no. Yeah. He's not even a smart fellow. He's worse. He's as stupid as Kamala Harris, in my opinion.
Tim Walz. I'm going to disagree with you guys on that. I think Tim Walz does this act, this all shucks, I'm just a dumb redneck kind of thing that he pretends. Nah,
Yeah.
I think he's a very he's a sleazy, slimy, conniving, clever person. He's not Kamala Harris dumb. I think he is probably pretty smart, a criminal in his mindset. He's involved in a rebellion against the federal government, but I think he's much smarter than he comes off. I think that's an act he puts on.
Well, I remember how badly Vance beat him in the BP, when they did that whole debate.
Well, that doesn't, it's hard to, listen, you can be the most brilliant person on the earth. How are you going to defend all these Democrat policies, right? I appreciate the call. Thanks so much. From Pensacola. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Stephen Peppers, calling from Atlanta, Georgia.
Steve in Atlanta. What's on your mind?
Well, I just can't understand when Tim Waltz and the mayor do these press conferences and stuff. Why don't somebody stand up and just ask them? Why don't they let them just come in and pick everybody up at the jail? Why do they have to? Do they want turmoil in the street?
Yes, they do.
That's the only reason they could have to do that. I mean, they could come pick people at the jail and take care of their people. And I just wanted to make that quick comment.
Because their people are the illegals and the Somali pirates of Minnesota. They don't consider the Native Americans like you and me that live in Minnesota their people. Their people are these foreigners.
I understand.
All right, Atlanta, Georgia. Appreciate the call. All right, let's go. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Doc from Texas.
Hey, Doc.
Hey, man. Hey, I'm getting ready to go to Mardi Gras ball, so I'm getting ready to call you. I was just looking at YouTube. Fine. I honestly want you to tell me. I want you to tell me that was not murder today.
It wasn't.
Brian, that was murder, Brian. I don't want to hear that he buried your gun.
Explain this to me, okay? Why did, without having any identification or a permit, so he was in possession of that gun illegally. He did not have ID.
He had a permit. He had a permit.
No, he did not have.
He had a permit. He had a permit.
No, he had nothing with him. But forget about
He
that.
didn't
Hold
have
on.
to win it, but he had a permit.
Listen. You're not. Hold on a second.
That didn't cost
You're
him.
not going to
That didn't
interrupt
cost him
me.
his life,
You're not going to
Brian.
interrupt me after every syllable.
That did not
I am going to get my question out, or I'm going to hang up on you and talk to somebody else. Okay.
You will do it anyway. So go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So he had with him the gun, fully loaded, and then 2 extra magazines. He had a minimum.
Okay.
He had no less than 30 rounds of ammunition. He may have had more. Depends on how big the mag. Why did he have at least 30 rounds of ammunition at an event
Because
where he's protesting federal agents?
He can legally have it, man.
No. You cannot.
You cannot. Hear that.
He had no identification.
How do I know? How do I know?
And he pulled the gun out.
I don't trust nothing.
And he pulled the gun out.
I don't trust nothing. ICE and Border Patrol. That guy.
Okay. All right. I trust nurses that have 30 rounds of ammunition and go at anti-police protests. That's who you trust? I mean, come on. If this were a Republican, a MAGA guy that ran into trouble with the Biden ICE people, I would ask the same question. Why did he have so much ammunition? Is it possible that these ICE agents stopped a mass shooting event? And I know there are guys out there like me, you are gun owners, and you may have we have open carry here in Florida, but you may have open carry or concealed carry in your state. When you take your handgun, whatever it is, with you, not to the gun range, when you take it with you, you don't bring extra magazines, do you? No. You have the gun loaded, because an unloaded gun not only doesn't help you, it could cause more problems if you had to use it and you didn't have ammunition in it. You could escalate things because you don't have the ammo to back it up. But I don't know any guy, other than cops when they're on duty, but even off-duty police officers don't bring extra ammo. I don't know anyone, and I've known guys my entire life since I was a child, who carry weapons. I've never known anyone to carry extra magazines with them, with their carry weapon. Never heard of that before. Out of everyone I've ever known. Part of the reason is when you're, when you're carrying a weapon, especially, if it's concealed and such, because they don't have open carry up there in Minnesota, very liberal, it's hard to carry all that extra. It'd be an inconvenience. But no one does that unless they need it. I remember we had a hurricane like 20 years ago. And my wife and I and our daughter, we went and stayed at my mother-in-law's house because the house we live in now, we had just bought. We did not have hurricane shutters yet. The first hurricane season in this house, we didn't have hurricane shutters or hurricane glass on the windows like we do now. So we didn't want to be here during the hurricane. And I go over to my mother-in-law's. My father-in-law's there, and I had my .38, and I didn't have any ammo for the .38. And he said, "Oh, no problem. Just bring it. I've got ammo for the .38." The .38 holds 5 rounds, okay? And I took 5 rounds out and I loaded it. He's like, "Oh no, take the whole box." I said, "I only need 5 rounds." This was during a hurricane. You know what it's going to be like after a hurricane. I said, "If I need more than 5, if I have to stop and reload, we're in trouble. You keep the box. I just need the 5 rounds." Guys that conceal carry do not carry extra ammunition. I'm telling you. Now I'm sure there's some exception to every rule, but you know that. It's the type of person that brings 30 rounds of ammunition is someone who thinks they need 30 rounds of ammunition. Now we may never know because dead men tell no tales, so he'll never be able to tell unless he told someone or left something behind that'll let them know. But the big question here is, what was he going to do with all of that ammunition? You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Brian, this is Sean from Massachusetts.
Hey, Sean, what's up?
Well, you're looking at, Tim Walz, this reminds me of, in many respects, Jasmine Crockett, because when she got her congressional seat obliterated, she tried to run for Senate, which failed miserably, and now he's resigning from governorship. Obviously, he's doing all of this for much bigger aspirations in his mind, his crazy mind.
Correct.
And whether it be president or maybe it's something else completely. I mean, you said, he's trying to start insurrection across the country. So what is this going to do?
Well, I think most of us believe that Tim Walz is a Chinese asset, right? Doesn't everybody believe that?
Yeah.
That he's So there's a lot, so he's serving a lot of purposes. If it's true that he's a Chinese asset, one, he's the Manchurian candidate. He is running for president. He doesn't plan on retiring from politics when he's no longer governor, even though he dropped out of the race. He's causing a lot of unrest nationwide through this insurrection, which is what the Chinese want, especially now when they're when Trump's kicking their butts so much. So what he's doing could be not just the fraud, but doing the bidding of his handlers over with the CCP.
No, definitely. And he's standing up with the criminals because criminals stand up for each other, and that's all that's about, from the top to the bottom. That's why this man that had this gun without license.
I mean, do you find it insane that this guy had so much ammunition?
Oh, definitely. Well, I mean, you don't go around in public like that. And like you said, unless you go into a shooting range, you're a police officer yourself or something of a military operation or whatever that could be. There's no reason for you to be doing that. And if he accomplished what we think he might have been doing, they would have martyred him as a hero in what he did. I mean, how many lives he would have taken. And that's what the narrative, that's the Democrat narrative. Now, another thing I was reading, heard about, now, this is something that Donald Trump might have coordinated. Who knows? We've got the ICE agents in the patrol of brilliant men and women. Christy Nome was brilliant. When I was hearing from our X-Ray 2 report, he said that there's a possibility that some of these ICE raids, what they would operation, might have been some decoy range because to lure some of these protests so the real operations can take place. Now, I don't know how much to a degree.
I would be surprised if that were not true.
And these men and women are still putting themselves at risk by doing this. And you got these crazy people appointed by the Democrat machine going out there to cause this chaos. And I was looking on TV today, and they were showing all the different protests and everything. These people are unhinged. This is just what they wanted. It's a distraction. That's all it is, a psyop in many different respects.
That's right.
And this is where it's going. This is all it is, to try and cover up. That's all it is.
That's right.
And,
all right, well, Liz, I appreciate the call from Boston, from Massachusetts. If you're on hold, stand by. If you'd like to call in, the number's toll-free, no matter where you're watching. And the toll-free number is pinned in the live chat. It's 888-465-2631. 888-465-2631. The guy that had all the guns and everything, the post-millennial has a story. His parents have spoken out. They said they warned him not to engage with the feds. So what that tells me is that he went there with the purpose of engaging with the ICE agents, federal agents. Right? Why would his parents tell him not to engage with the federal agents? Unless he told them he was going to. So that would explain why he brought so much ammunition with him. It's really, we're in very frightening times, and the Democrats are so out of control and irresponsible. We already have 2 people dead because of the Democrats. This is from Fox. This is Congressman Jeff Van Drew. He's from New Jersey. He was speaking today after the incident. That's right. Okay, yeah. I mean, that's everything that Van Drew said is right on the money. And it's not just that it's right on the money, it's responsible. He's being responsible. Since this Renee Good thing happened, anytime this comes up, I've been telling you guys, don't go to the anti-ICE protest in your city. There was an anti-ICE protest not far from my house a couple weeks ago. Okay? And I've been telling you, don't go to them. Because these leftists, it's dangerous. And what the left have been doing, if you watch all of these protests, what the left have been doing is trying to instigate instances at every opportunity, right? They're trying to get a reaction. This guy went a little too far. I mean, and look at this, Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar calls for fatal shooting of armed suspect in Minneapolis and execution, accuses federal agents of targeting our residents, right? This is, again, amping things up. Escalation. People in government, when there's a crisis like this, you want to cool things off. Everyone that's being harmed, that's being killed, are Democrats. These Democrats are putting their own people in harm's way and getting them killed. And you know what? They don't even care. Because Ilhan Omar, there's all this, well, how'd she get that $30 million net worth? Some say it's even more than that. I don't know, but it's at least $30 million. So she's another one. They want the feds out of Minnesota because they have this racket going on. And if the feds are there, we're in trouble. This is the National Guard general in Minnesota. Oh, yeah, and then Walls comes up. Let me rewind it. Hold on there. This is right after the shooting. See, immediately stirring the pot. Totally irresponsible comment to make. He's blaming the federal government for everything instead of saying, go home. Go home. Because he doesn't want them to go home. He wants these things to grow. There was a story earlier today that the ICE agents retreated from one of these blocks. Maybe they did do a tactical retreat. You know, they're not soldiers, and we don't want them there, you know, fighting, you know, like soldiers. And they were outnumbered, and they don't want to have to use their weapons. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what Tim Walz wants. More protesters, force the feds out. I would be shocked if President Trump doesn't do the Insurrection Act now. There's got to be something done because things are. And this is another clip from the Tim Walz National Guard General press conference after the shooting today. See, nothing about going home. Nothing about cooling things off. Everything from, this is why this guy here, you know, President Trump, I don't think he can federalize the National Guard in Minnesota. Would you trust this guy, this National Guard general? No way. He's in sympathy. He's sympathetic to the insurrectionist in the streets. Oh, billing them. Why don't we bill you for that $19 billion that you guys have stolen with the Leering centers, with the Somali pirates? See, it goes on and on and on. Never once do any of these people say, go home. It's getting out of control. It's dangerous. Like I've been telling you, don't go to any anti-ICE protest. I've been saying, stay home. Don't go to them. Because they want you to go so they can escalate things. See, that's what a responsible person does. What you have from the National Guard General and Governor Walz here is the instigation of violence. Now, this is a police chief from, I forgot where he is, from Vancouver, Washington. Okay? Washington State. Now, this guy, they need this guy in Minneapolis. That's right. See, this guy, now that's a responsible official. That's a responsible police chief, not what we're getting in Minnesota. Now, here is Bovino in the press conference they had today. telling us about the incident. Mm. Oh my goodness. See, no permit, nothing. See, Bovino's talking about what I was telling you. Why so much ammo? And Doc from Texas, he had no identification, which is illegal. He had no permit with him or identification. He was in possession of the gun illegally, and he had all that ammunition. And like Bovino just said, it's for maximum damage. This very well may have been a mass shooter that was stopped and neutralized. I mean, think about it. I want you guys, those of you that are on the wrong side of this or disagree with me on this. This guy pulled out a loaded 9mm pistol, semi-automatic handgun, and pointed it at federal agents at a very heated event, by the way. They were there making an arrest, and there's all these protesters blowing their whistles and honking their horns. Why would you pull a gun on federal agents as a civilian? In what world is it okay in your mind to do that? Could one of you explain to me, in this situation, where there's any scenario where it is okay to pull out a 9mm and point it at federal officers? Now, I know one of the things they're going to say, Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse didn't point a gun at cops or federal agents. He had the gun legally, he had ID with him, and he was attacked by the people that he shot in self-defense, and he was acquitted by a jury of his peers. But even if you don't agree with that, you didn't think he should have been there with the gun. This isn't Rittenhouse. No matter what, there's nothing, there's no similarity between this and Rittenhouse. The guy went to an anti-ICE protest. Remember, these are federal agents like the FBI, the Secret Service, right? While they're making an arrest of a violent felon suspect, he has a 9mm handgun with 2 extra magazines. He pulled the 9mm out and pointed it at a federal agent. What are they supposed to do? In fact, I'll say they were restrained. They tried to peacefully, so far as without a weapon, subdue him. They jumped on him like they tackled him, and still it wasn't enough. So I'd like one of you who are on the other side on this to explain to me, in what scenario is it okay to pull a gun on federal agents on the street like this while they're making an arrest? Can you imagine if you saw cops arresting somebody on the street or giving someone a ticket on the side of the road, and you pulled over and pointed a gun at them? What would they do? They'd shoot you dead right there on the spot. Boom. That's it. They'd shoot you dead. Right? I mean, do you guys even do you even hear yourself? All right, so let's go back to Bovino going through I'm going to rewind it because I want to hear. He's giving us a lot of information here. Mm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. Yeah, a lot of information there, and it's there. Sometimes there's events that happen, and okay, you don't know exactly what happened. Like if you remember Michael Brown, the hands up, don't shoot. Now there's, I mean, how many different angles have you seen of this incident already? I've seen at least 4 or 5 from different people from different angles. We never used to see these things before. And because these are ongoing protests, when there's an incident, usually people take out their phone after something happens. Like the Michael Brown incident, the spark happened before people started recording. But because these are active protests, they're always recording. So we get to see everything that happened before, during, and after the incident. So we get the full picture. And because and all these videos that we're seeing are from your liberal friends. They're filming it and posting it on social media. And I do want to say, it is a tragedy when anyone loses their life. So I feel very sorry for this guy that he lost his life, and I feel sorry for his family. However, you don't pull a gun on federal agents. And I'm here to tell you, this guy was planning something probably with all that ammunition. So these officers very well may have saved the lives of God knows how many people with all of that ammunition. Now here's Pam Bondi today. See, that really pissed me off when she said that. When I heard her say this live. We've sent him a very strong letter today. That reminded me of Matt Damon in Team America World Police. Ever see that movie? It was a very good movie. It came out many years ago, and they were dealing with Kim Jong. They had the guy from the UN. We've sent a strongly worded letter to Kim Jong Un. Now, I understand for the legal process, they do have to send a letter and some type of notification to Tim Walz of what they're doing. But you should have. That's not the way you say it, okay? You may say we notified Tim Walz, but her wording there was not the greatest. Well, how about you go and arrest this insurrectionist? It's been how many weeks since Nick Shirley's story? The protest started right after. It's been 3 weeks or a month? Was it 3 weeks Friday or a month? Right? The state of Minnesota has been in rebellion, and Tim Walz has been leading an insurrection against the federal government ever since. So we don't want any letters of cooperation. We want handcuffs on Tim Walz, Jacob Fry, and whoever else is instigating this violence. We'll see. We saw. Oh my goodness. President Trump has put together the most brilliant, effective cabinet in the history of the American presidency, except for her. And I think he's got a pretty good average. Both of his terms, he's just had crappy attorney generals the whole time. He's just had problems with his attorney generals. But everybody else not only performs as expected, but they're very much above and beyond where what you would some of the things that Pete Hegseth and the others are doing is amazing, except for her. Pam Bondi sucks. Okay, will there be any call? Well, we'll see. This is an ongoing situation. I mean, how much more do you got to see Pam Bondi? Come on, send Cash Patel with some guys with some handcuffs, and this is all of you people on the left with your January 6th thing that we were hearing about all these years. This is what an insurrection looks like. If you'd like to call in, the number's pinned in the live chat. It's toll-free no matter where you're watching, 888-465-2631. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Cleveland Steamer from Sacramento, California again. Brian, I saw all 3 of those videos. That man didn't even have a gun on him.
Oh, come on. I'm not going to sit here and be gaslit. All right? You can see it in the videos. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and talk stupid. Okay? I mean, this is with stupid people saying stupid things. Don't believe your lying eyes. Okay, so here is insurrectionist Governor Tim Walz today. And by the way, I want to ask you guys, this sign language interpreter, is she for real? I mean, I have a friend who's a sign language interpreter, a professional sign language interpreter, and I texted him just a little while ago. I haven't heard back yet. I don't think, have I? I sent him a video of her and asked if she's for real. I haven't heard back from him yet on that, but she's out of control. But here's insurrectionist Governor Tim Walz. Listen. See, how can what she's doing, okay, I don't know sign language and all this stuff. If she's for real, this thing she's doing with her tongue out of her mouth, is this American Sign Language? I'm not kidding. And if it is, the way she's doing it is so distracting. How, there's a crisis going on. How can you even pay attention to what the governor's saying? With her flailing around like she's having a seizure. This looks like fake to me, but, whatever. I do. See? The right thing is take all federal agents out of Minnesota and turn Minnesota over to these lunatics that pull 9mm handguns on federal agents. Yes, they are. They're federal law enforcement officers. They're ICE agents, Immigration Customs Enforcement. Immigration Customs Enforcement. Enforcement's part of the name of their agency. What an idiot. Decency. Oh my goodness. See what I'm talking about? Total instigation of violence going on here. Okay, here is. I'm not sure if this is the same clip or not. Let me pull this one up. Hold on. See, this needs to be. He's talking about the shooting today. This needs to be the event that says enough. Isn't that something? This guy is the Department of Public Safety Commissioner for the state of Minnesota. So I guess he's in charge of the state police. By the way, I got a question. Those of you that have police experience, I don't know. Because I'm just a layman. He called that a crime scene. When there's an officer-involved shooting, is that location normally referred to as a crime scene? Because it seems to me that they're calling the ICE agents criminals. I mean, there was a crime committed there. This guy pulled a 9mm weapon on federal agents. But when there's a shooting of a suspect like this by law enforcement, do they normally call that a crime scene? I don't know. I maybe they do, but I don't. That just doesn't seem to fit to me. See, even they're afraid of their own mob. See, even they're afraid of their own mob. Yeah, so, I mean, and you can tell, I mean, if they're afraid of their people, right? If they're afraid of their people, because the people that they had, the state law enforcement couldn't stay there because they were afraid of the crowd, right? I mean, these are Democrats that they're afraid of. Think about it. Oh, my goodness. All right, if you're on hold, stand by. If you'd like to call in, the number is 888-465-2631. 888-465-2631. It's a toll-free call no matter where you are listening. All right, let's go. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Mike from Louisiana.
Oh, hey, Mike.
You know, that whole leadership situation in Minnesota is ridiculous. I mean, this woman who's doing the signing, he's got to know that he makes her look like an idiot. The way he's signing. I mean, look, every governor for every state has one of these people that does that. You know.
No, I've been watching this woman for the last few weeks, and I mean, I get like motion sickness. It's like watching. Who's that guy that sang that song from An Officer and a Gentleman? Love lift us up where we belong. Was that Joe Cocker? And he was always doing these motions, you know. Or or watching the Blair Witch Project. Yeah, she's hard to watch, no doubt about it. This is Mayor Fry. Oh, yeah, the federal government, we're going to, you know, the United States government, right? We just grabbed Maduro. We defeated the Nazis. We won the Cold War. We beat the Japanese. You know, we beat the British in the Revolution. But we're going to evacuate. The United States is going to go on retreat from Minnesota. From a nurse? I don't think so. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Scott. I'm calling from Kansas City.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah. The only reason that you would go anywhere with extra magazines, I have a shoulder holster from the Spanish police shoulder holster, has very typical, has an extra clip in a pocket.
Yeah.
So I go around with 2 clips. But that guy going around, how many clips did he have?
They said, well, the 9mm was fully loaded, and he had 2 extra clips. So
okay.
So there was a minimum of 30 rounds, minimum.
Yeah, he may have been going somewhere to do some business.
What do you mean by that?
Walls.
What kind of business? He was
maybe
at a,
being a shootout.
To me it looked like he was quite possibly planning a mass shooting event of ICE officers, perhaps.
That's what I was saying, being a shootout. Where I was saying was with a shoulder holster, he comes with a pocket for an extra clip. But you go out with
really,
2 more
I'm going to tell you, you don't conceal carry with a shoulder holster is not smart.
Well, we do it here in Missouri.
No, you shouldn't do it. Now, I'll tell you. I'm going to tell you why. If you get into a confrontation, the gun and the handle, no matter what holster it is, it's the guy that you're fighting with can just reach out and grab it out of the holster, and it's pointed at you. It's very dangerous. You should not. The only I know shoulder holsters look cool because like the detectives wear them on TV and they look cool, but it's not safe. You could find your own gun being pointed at you by a bad guy.
Yeah, you don't think I have heard that before?
I'm sure you have, but I'm telling you, it's I'm a very responsible and very smart gun owner, and I know they look cool. I'd like to have one. I'd like to have one myself. Right? We got open carry. I'd love to walk around with shoulder holster, with my Glock. It looks cool, but it's not smart. Because the bad guy would take the gun out of the holster and he's pointing it at me. I might as well hand him the gun.
Well, you can have a holster in a lot of places, and the bad guy can reach for it. If he can reach for that, he can reach for it anywhere.
No, but in the shoulder holster, when they grab it out, it's in their hand and it's pointed at you. Like on my hip holster, it's the gun. If they reached over, it would be very awkward, and it wouldn't be pointed at me, and the gun would be upside down. It would be a mess. But in the shoulder, but anyway, I know you've heard this before, right? I'm just warning you.
Oh yeah.
See?
Oh yeah, I've heard it many times.
Exactly. But they do look cool. I'll
Since
give you
the
that.
1970s.
Yeah, but they look cool.
Anyhow, Walls reminds me of reminds me of Mo Howard of the Three Stooges, a very assertive buffoon.
Mo Howard, yes.
And so
Mo Howard.
Yeah, I guess that's about all I've got.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I'm trying to help you.
No. Well, we just discussed it for those who are listening and might be thinking of having a holster of some
because
sort or another.
If you got into a struggle with somebody, a fight, a confrontation, it could, All right, hey, listen, we'll talk again. Take care. All right, let's go. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name's Craig. Calling from Martin County.
Hey, turn down the volume of whatever device you're listening to me on, if you don't mind.
Give me a second, sir.
That's right. He's calling from MAGA Martin County. All right, a MAGA Martin County caller. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. What's on your mind?
Oh, no, I was just laughing when I'm seeing on TV, but
laughing?
I've seen this coming for the last 20 years.
Why would you laugh at this? I mean, there's an insurrection. People are dying.
I saw this coming 20 years ago, my friend.
It doesn't mean it's funny. I don't laugh when people get killed. I don't think it's funny. I think it's scary.
Well, it's all part of the agenda. You'd know this if you've seen this coming, sir.
What agenda and whose agenda?
It's agenda to bring in the New World Order.
No, what's going on in Minnesota, okay, it's certainly one thing for sure we know. This is about Tim Walz trying to get the feds out of Minnesota because of the $19 billion in theft that Nick Shirley uncovered a few weeks ago. That's what this is primarily. It's not about the New World Order. It's about covering up the fraud in Minnesota. They're trying to get the feds out of there because they got busted, and Tim Walz is afraid of going to prison.
Well, he won't go to prison because he's one of them.
What's one of them? You mean of the New World Order, globalists?
Yeah, just like Donald Trump is. They're all part of the same club.
Oh, really? Tim Walz and Donald Trump are working together. You sure you're calling me from Martin County? Are you calling me from, like, the mental hospital in Martin County?
Why would you say that?
Because you don't talk like, well, you sound crazy, for one, with that last statement. And two, you don't sound like the average guy I know in Martin County, Florida, which is the most MAGA county in America.
So you basically know everybody in Martin County. Am I correct, sir?
No one can know everyone in any county, but I've lived here all my life, and I know a lot of people in Martin County. And Martin County, anytime I get a call from Stewart or Martin County, you'll always hear me say, from MAGA Martin County. It is the most MAGA county in the United States.
Well, that's kind of funny, sir, because I don't see anybody flying any flags or stickers or anything. So how could it be
Are you kidding
MAGA?
me? When you in Martin County, you don't see any. You're tripping over them. They're in front of every. My father-in-law lives in Stewart. Do you know where Stewart is?
Okay.
Where's
that's where I live, sir.
Okay. Well, then you know. There's a Trump flag in front of every house. Get off the phone. I can't listen to gaslighters. Okay. Oh my goodness. There's no place. This St. Lucie County, which is just north of MAGA County. It's close. It's close. But there's no place as MAGA as Martin County. Oh my goodness. Doesn't mean everybody there is MAGA. You know, there's there's no county where it's 100% population of Republicans that support Trump. But he doesn't. If you next time I go, I'll make a vlog and I'll show you. I did a vlog actually. If you go to on my YouTube channel here, if you search through my vlogs, I did a vlog and it's titled "I Visit the Most MAGA County in America" or something like that. It's called. I made an entire YouTube video on MAGA Martin County. With my daughter, we went and visited her grandpa, my father-in-law, and spent the day in this MAGA county. Give me a break. But listen here. There is some in this tragedy today. You know, I like to think of, okay, where are we going? This is one thing you got to take, okay? What's happening in Minnesota, Minneapolis in particular, is god-awful. Two people have died because of Tim Walz and these Democrats and Mayor Fry and all these people. There's no doubt about it. However, it is not spread to the rest of the nation, right? It's pretty isolated. That doesn't mean that they don't do something in Portland or Seattle or something. But, in President Trump's first term, when they had an incident, it spread to every major city in the country. And these things have not spread. We arrested there's two women that got arrested from the church, right? They're out on bail. Black Lives Matter people. We've had these incidents, 2 incidents now, with the one today and Renee Good. These protests have been going on for almost a month, okay? And it is not spread to the other cities. So what does that tell you? Well, it tells you a couple things. That is out of control and as much of an insurrection against the federal government that's going on in Minnesota, it's isolated to Minnesota. The rest of the country are on President Trump's side. Another thing it tells you is how effective DOJ was in shutting down USAID, that they don't have the operation. There's a lot of paid protesters in Minnesota, no doubt about it, but they don't have the budget to stage nationwide protests anymore because USAID is out of business. So as god-awful, bad, and as tragic as things are in Minneapolis today, it hasn't spread. Which says what? that the majority of the people agree with Trump. That's what it says. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Brian. It's Michael in California.
Hey, Michael. What's up?
How are you? I'm doing not much. I have sat through a active shooter simulation as part of my job's training with what I do. And I have gained a whole new perspective of what law enforcement officers actually go through. And they've gained a lot of my respect with what they have to do in a split second, because they literally have seconds to decide of whether or not what they want to live or they want to go back home in a body bag, Brian.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate this person's lost his life, yes, but he shouldn't have been out there in the first place seeking trouble, and that's exactly what he was doing, was seeking trouble and trying to stop a active law enforcement operation. You're not going to go out a winner. I don't know what they're thinking, Brian. Like, they're idiots. Like, if you don't like what ICE is doing, just go home and walk the other way and mind your own business. You know what I mean? Just don't
this guy,
bother.
this guy that lost his life. Okay, I mean, we got a couple things about this that I've talked about on the show today. One, all of the ammo that he brought, and then his parents spoke out and warned him against confronting ICE, which indicates that they thought he was going to confront ICE. This looks like it was a mass shooter that they stopped.
Yeah. I mean, or he was just trying to be the next Renee Good and trying to get himself out of whatever situation he was in.
He had a lot of ammunition. I mean, think about it. His gun was loaded, plus he had 2 clips. So he had 3 clips of ammunition.
Right.
That's a lot.
What was he thinking? Like, what? This is nothing but Tim Walz buying time. What little time he has left. That's all it is.
From the
he
fraud.
knows the jig is up. Like, exactly. He knows the jig is up. And Fry needs to resign. That dude is a rabble rouser. He does nothing but what has he done for Minneapolis?
Well, he's gotten 2 people killed. You know, because some of these are paid protesters.
They're brain dead idiots.
Yes.
There's so many choice words I want to use on your program now, but I can't. And I'm a gentleman, and I don't want to describe Tim Walz and that Fry dude. Like, they're in over their heads with their jobs. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They're just out for power, and they're grasping at the last power they have.
Well, a lot of these, you're exactly right. They're like they're dictators. They're about to fall, and you know there are a lot of paid protesters, but the paid protesters bring real protesters, and a lot of these people are brainwashed and gaslit into thinking that they're civil rights activists, like Martin Luther King.
I heard a reporter on Fox earlier when I was watching the Big Weekend show, and I don't know why I was watching that show, but he said that these protesters, he was describing them and their signs, and they looked like they were handmade. Well, of course they're handmade, because we found out that they were prepaid and made beforehand, not organic and things like that, when that was uncovered with Doge. And
I went to the No Kings March, and I made a video. It's on my X, Brian Craig Show on X. I went to the first No Kings March in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I went undercover. I didn't wear my MAGA gear, so I could see what was going on. And I went and I worked my way into the activists. They thought I was like with them, you know. And I went back there and showed the fake signs that they were handing out. That they had them in boxes and buckets to hand out that were pre-made. Yeah, I did all that. Well, listen,
they got smarter now, and they're trying to make them by hand now, and trying to figure out, like, trying to make us think that this is organic now, and it's not.
And you know, here,
it's all planned.
What you said though in this call though that's true is I agree with everything you've said, but one of the most important things that you said, I think, was what we all know, that Tim Walz and Fry are buying time because they're afraid of getting arrested with the Somali Lyrian Center fraud that was exposed by Nick Shirley. It's obvious. And they're getting people killed.
Yep. And as a consequence of those actions, they're going to... I'm not trying to make this political at all, but people are going to wake up in Minnesota.
Well, I'm going to tell you, you got look this up when you're done watching me. When Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy were both assassinated in 1968, but Martin Luther King was killed first. And when Martin Luther King was assassinated, a lot of blacks thought there was going to be an uprising, a revolution. The Black Panthers were around and everything. And I'm going to describe this to you guys. Look this up online. Bobby Kennedy, he came out, remember, he was running for president, right? He came out and addressed the nation, and he said, and to cool people off, he said, someone in my family was killed a few years ago. And then he went to, of course, he was talking about President Kennedy, and he came out and calmed people down. What Tim Walz is doing and Fry is instigating more violence. That is illegal. What they're doing.
And that's why the Insurrection Act. That's why the Insurrection Act needs to be enacted and enforced and calm everybody down. Like this is getting out of hand. They're letting it get out of hand. Mm-hmm. This isn't the federal government's fault. This is their fault.
Yes. Yeah.
And I would just enact the Insurrection Act right now.
And arrest Tim Walz really needs to be arrested.
He does. He needs to resign faster. So does Fry.
Yeah, I wish I could play that Bobby Kennedy clip to you guys to show the difference. But RFK Jr. is so in the news. The search algorithms on the search engines, you search for anything with Bobby Kennedy, you get RFK Jr. So I can't find it on the fly here. But look that up, guys. And that's a responsible Democrat, Bobby Kennedy Sr. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Trisha, bus
Trisha.
driver.
Yep. Hey, Trisha. Oh, yeah. Hey. You're at ground zero.
Yes. It was a long day.
By the way, this caller, she's in Minneapolis. She's calling us from Minneapolis.
Yeah, I'm calling from Minneapolis. There's so many things. I mean, everything is going through my head right now. But I'm going to tell you, my sister, who is a Trump hater, said that ICE was in the neighborhood, and she saw a vehicle that said, she was at Holiday and offered them some air for their air hose. And they go, we're not going to go closer. We don't want to, because ICE is here. And she said, well, I just want you to know, I hate Donald Trump. She's crazy liberal, right? I hate Donald Trump, but I totally support ICE. So I don't know what but I'm not trying to, but anyway, these people are insurrection crazy, and I need them to not inflame the problem. See, people keep getting killed. Like there was a African-American man who I always talk to. He's a guy that does security on our bus. And he said to me, what do you think about Minnesota being in the news all the time? I said, I hate it because it's all for the wrong reason, right? Yeah. And I said, they need to go away and let ICE do their job. Exactly. He said, yep, I know. Yeah. And I said, what they're doing is they're creating more issues, and it's deflecting and making it dangerous on the ground. And I told the dude too, and he agreed with me. This guy, African-American, young guy, and he totally agreed with me that he must be Christian, but he agreed with me that they are misinterpreting and conflating that they're in here to arrest the worst of the worst. There's been so many let in, right? And they're trying to get out the bad. And local law enforcement and state has been told to stand down. Yeah. So they are not allowed to do anything.
And by the way, Fry and Tim Walz let a bunch of these illegals that are felons free from the local jails right before ICE. Yeah.
So, and Tanya doesn't believe it. I'm trying to tell her, explain it to her that, look, they're letting them out, and then they have to go into the neighborhood. They're not arresting Abuelo, okay? Mm-hmm. Get over. They're not. They wanted to just go in here, extract and remove, and then leave, okay? And all you're doing now is creating the violent situation, and then, all these left-wing shit, they're lying. They're lying.
That's right. Well, listen, I appreciate the call. Keep me updated on the word on the street of Minneapolis, all right?
I will. It's intense. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Yeah, she calls. She's been our Minneapolis correspondent. So we got some new information on the ammunition that this nurse had with him. His handgun held 17 rounds. So, yeah, isn't that something? And also, it had an optic sight on it. Well, why would you have an optic sight? He's like the Terminator here. And with the extra magazines, he had as many as 51 rounds. As many as 51 rounds. Why has a guy got a 9mm weapon with an optic sight on it, like the Terminator in the first Terminator movie? The gun holds 17 rounds. And the reason it's uneven, one in the chamber. And he had 2 backup magazines. That's a mass shooting event person, is what that is. No other way around it. Those officers, sadly, he lost his life. I don't like to see anybody lose their life. But these officers probably saved some lives. Maybe it was ICE officers. But, you know, so a guy like that starts shooting his weapon off. You know, and, you know, it's really frightening. This is a nurse. We had a nurse here in Florida I was talking about on the show yesterday who was saying terrible things about Caroline Levitt and her pregnancy. This guy's an ICU nurse. And what would happen if you went to the ER and you had this guy as your nurse, or that nurse here in Florida that just got fired yesterday, and they knew you were MAGA? You know, years ago, I had to go to the emergency room. And when I went to the emergency room, the paramedics knew me from the show. And there was an ER doctor. He knew me, too. It was really kind of uncomfortable and embarrassing, to tell you the truth. You know, you go to the hospital for something. Can you imagine if this guy was my nurse and he knew me? Who knows what he would inject me with? It's really scary. You know, the left throw Nazi around all the time. Why do they have so many people that are radical lunatic activists that are in the healthcare profession? There needs to be some investigating into this. Would you trust this guy? If you were in a car accident, you have your Trump shirt on, and you get taken to the ER, and this guy's your nurse in the hospital, he was a hospital nurse, do you think you'd get good care? Would he have given you proper care? Those of you that are new, my name's Brian Craig. This is where MAGA comes to talk. Anytime I'm live streaming in one of my studios, I'm always taking live calls. And I'm here every weekday morning, but I also stream in the afternoon and on the weekends, obviously, because it's the weekend now. And all the calls I take are screenless and unvetted, meaning when you call in, I just put you on hold. I don't answer the phone until you're on. Nobody answers the phone until you hear me say, what's your name? You're on the air. So all the calls are screenless and unvetted every day, always, just so you guys know. If you're new, make sure you subscribe, guys. And if you are already subscribed, please like the video and share the link on your social media and invite your friends and followers on your different socials to check the show out. My name's Brian Craig. This is where MAGA comes to talk. Thanks for tuning in. I will talk to you next time. Take care.